because he's trying to figure out how to extract those before the deadline,
Yeah,
which
I was
is
just messing around to see if it works. It
you got
can't.
like what 2 days or something to try and get people's avatars out.
Woohoo! We're
Well,
live.
I
Ah,
need this
there it comes.
continuing them
I
very,
can go and
very
get
much.
my one if I need to.
Oh right. Oh, they've extended that deadline, have they?
October the
Can you hear me
2nd.
now?
Yes.
Or 1st.
We are
Tuesday.
Oh.
It's
Right, right, right.
Tuesday.
we are live.
We are live, ladies and gentlemen. So please repeat everything that we just said for the last 5 minutes.
It's
And
on
action.
my phone.
We're just
Westria.
gonna sign it.
What else are we supposed to do?
He was totally silent.
Oh, nice. That's great. Well, I think we looked up at Dead's Ed and we laughed because he was spinning around.
We all said October 15th.
That's beautiful. Also, October 15th. There's some significance there. We're not sure what. We can't quite remember, but it's something. We definitely know it's something. But anyway, welcome to the event, guys. This is Space Makers, as we call it, right? The Banter Developer Meetup, as it's actually called. But I've been calling it Space Makers for quite a while. Maybe I should change that. Or change the space name. Yeah, maybe we should get a new space, right? We haven't changed up this space for a while. Actually, this is a space that came straight off the Unity Asset Store. Some of you might remember it from Physics Playground, I think is one of the places that used it first. But yeah, it's just a ready-made asset on the Unity Asset Store that Aline polished up for us and added all of the bounciness and the slipperiness that came straight off the Unity Asset Store, which is important. Some of you might remember it from it's definitely an important thing to have. But anyway, welcome. This is our Space Makers event. Usually we do it like a Q&A style where you make your way up onto the podium. And if you manage to stay on the podium and not slip off or bounce off, then you can ask a question. If you don't, then you have to go to AFK jail for 15 minutes. Come on, Barry, you can do it. Oh no, there you go.
Am I
Cheers,
worthy
Barry.
of jail? No, perhaps not.
You either get
quickly,
megaphone or electrocuted. That's one of the two things.
Okay,
I've
but you
got the
can't hear
portal
me.
in my hand. I'm ready to throw it.
I don't know who's in charge of the Discord, but the time wasn't changed, and I know that you've now said that it's starting a half an hour later,
Yes.
and so I'm just going to poke a button there to encourage that to be changed. Thank you.
Yes. It's a tricky one, and yeah, let me explain because there's a few parts involved here. But the way the Discord works, if any of you are familiar with our website, there's a button to be able to bring the banter events into your Google Calendar, right? So what we have done is kind of jerry-rigged that together with a Discord bot that's able to read from a Google Calendar. But the problem is that Google itself will only update its events once every 24 hours. So it means that any changes that could occur, it can take up to 24 hours for those to be propagated onto that Google Calendar. That's unfortunately something that we don't have the power to change unless we just re-implement it, right? And have something that kind of posts the events ourselves into the channel, which is something that we could do. Honestly, I never really get a good sense of how many people kind of use that or rely on that and prefer to get their feed of events from Discord rather than from, let's say, the website or while you're in game or what's the most important thing. Maybe we should throw out a poll on the Discord that asks people, right? You know, are you using this and what's your favorite? And if we can do that, then maybe we can get a sense. And if it is something that people really want, maybe we can get something that can be a bit more real time and can update immediately whenever things change, right? Rather than relying on that sequence of third-party services to
Thank
be
you.
able to work there. But
Yeah,
yeah, that's what happens. Sometimes I'll go
Okay.
in and manually update event times in there when they
Yeah.
change, but then the bot comes back in and overwrites it after me
Yeah.
and puts it back, which is quite frustrating. But yeah, no,
Right.
good point. Let's find out who needs that and how important that is. And if it is important, maybe we can look at re-implementing it and make it a bit better.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. That's great. Thank you. Yeah, so if I need to fill some time, as you all know, I tend to waffle on. I have a few things I can waffle about, But one thing I can tell you, since a lot of people who are here also tend to also come to my AMA events, which is tomorrow, I think I'm going to change up the style of that event, right? Space,
so
you know,
quiet.
for new users or for people to socialize that maybe, you know, events that are less social shouldn't be there. So, in a nutshell, I was possibly going to change up the AMA a little bit and make it more along the lines of a casual chat, right? Like a fireside chat where we can all just sit down and talk. And there's no real requirement to just sit there and listen to me in the middle up at the front and to have to stay quiet or anything like that, right? So we can do it kind of more like a mingle and chill. I'll be there. I'll be there once a week for the entirety of the event. And if anybody wants to talk to me and we engage in a conversation and you want to ask me anything, because after all, that will still be the purpose of the event. But I'll take the spotlight off me. I'll take megaphone off. I'll maybe we'll stop streaming that event as well, right? So we can all just kind of hang out together and have a more relaxed environment where we can just chat about pretty much whatever you want, right? I think in substance it should essentially stay the same, but
Like the text.
yeah, I'll just make it more social, right? That's kind of what we're all about. Honestly, I'm not the biggest fan of, you know, the crowd being silenced, let's say, when it comes to certain events like this, and it being expected that everybody needs to be quiet. But yeah, I definitely prefer the back and forth rather than a one-way conversation, let's say.
Don't
Go ahead,
deprive
Aaron.
us of projected shame. Jeez.
Oh no. Well, we can all take turns, right? Or we can all get up there at the same time. I love that with all the Kermits. That was great.
Yeah, so we're talking about the event calendar, and on the Banter homepage,
Yes.
when you go to event, it's not made for mobile phones,
Right.
so everything is really small. So if you would like to change it up a little bit bigger fonts or something like that.
Gotcha. I thought there was some mobile responsiveness in there that it maybe collapses it down to like a row of two on smartphones. But I mean, maybe we could make that better. I thought it was semi okay. You mean on bantervr.com or do you mean
Yeah,
on sidequestvr.com? Right, bantervr. Gotcha.
Banter.
Yeah, I'll take a look at that. If I can make that easier, make it easier to read. Yeah, I'll definitely sort that out.
Because when I press on the menu button now and I look on the phone, it's like, it's quite small menu.
Gotcha.
And the
What
text
phone have
for
you got out of
every
interest?
event is really small, so I need to either use glasses or zoom in. I'm old.
Gotcha.
So
Gotcha.
yeah, thank you, Shane.
Yeah, no problem. Let me know in Discord what phone you've got out of interest, so I can maybe check some things like
Ooh.
default web view resolution,
If
stuff
you
like
fall
that.
off, you go to
That
jail.
probably would. Oh,
It'll slip.
if I fall off, I have to go to jail, and you guys all have to sit here and wait for me to come back.
Woo.
Okay,
Yeah. So
go
my
ahead.
question is,
Edie, what can I give you? What can I do
yeah,
you for?
I've been missing in action for a few months due to an illness in the
Okay,
family, but I think I'm coming back around to being more engaged. And
welcome back.
if you had to summarize what changes as a developer I should be aware of that happened in the last 3 months, what are some changes that happened in the last 3 months to make things different and better and all that stuff?
This man's gonna waffle for the whole event. Fuck.
It's a lot. Yeah, I mean, I guess to some degree, right? It's a lot. Maybe it's not that much, but we re-implemented the SDK. I think that's probably covered in the last 3 months.
Right.
We finally released that, right? That was one thing that we did. I think we had
Okay.
pretty much nearly full backwards compatibility with the old SDK. So a lot of worlds out there are still using the old way of doing things, which still works just fine. That's a pretty big deal. Behind me, you've got the new documentation for the new SDK. It's
Okay.
linked in the Discord if you want to check it out. It's much better. It has a search and everything compared to the old documentation. It's
Good.
still a
Thank you.
slight work in progress because we've only really done a soft launch of the old SDK. We're planning on trying to polish off quite a number of items, and then we'll publish all
Okay.
of that to the website and everything as well. I mean, I guess the other big ticket item is probably avatars, right? We've taken some fairly substantial concrete steps towards our own custom avatar setup. So once again, the same documentation has information on avatar creation.
Okay.
Included in there is a link and information to our Blender plugin, which will basically create your avatar automatically for you and even upload it from Blender straight onto your account in Banter. So
Good.
I guess the highlights there, we've got much higher limits when it comes to, what you can do with your avatar. We've, we're actually working on a number of avatar improvements behind the scenes, some of which have already landed in the game, but the bulk of which are going to land soon, and they're really going to improve what we're doing. I mean, this is less developer related. Maybe it is, I suppose, but we have a brand new physics character controller that's going to be put in, a fully custom built one ourselves. Yeah, that's probably about 3 months, right? We've been visual scripting is a big deal, yeah. With SDK v2,
Okay.
we now support Unity visual scripting. So if you're familiar with
Good.
that at all, you can use that to create, logic inside your worlds.
I do a lot of scripting in Unity, and I think with the old SDK, I was limited in that the scripts wouldn't be run in Banter. So does that mean that change that some custom scripts can run now in Banter under the new SDK?
If you're using the Unity visual scripting system, right, that's the visual graph with the nodes and all that stuff. Yeah, absolutely.
Great.
There is some members that aren't available, right? Some stuff that could give you access to, I don't know, the file system, or any of the behind the scenes stuff like reflection and whatever else.
Okay.
But yeah, there's a lot of stuff that you can make use of, a lot of stuff that you can access, and we're kind of continuing to add stuff. So if you have any ideas of things you'd like to see in there, you can always let us know. And yeah, visual scripting is being supported as much as a first party system as anything else. So we'll have full support there by the time we go full launch for the SDK.
Great.
And there's actually a really nice bridge which will continue to improve as well, where you can execute JavaScript code from visual scripting, which gives you a
Okay.
nice way to be able to break out of that and leverage, the full open web and the full browser stack, all of
Yeah.
the bells and whistles that are in there. So doing
Good.
things like making web requests or connecting to external services or any of that kind of stuff becomes super easy then
Right.
with that bridge.
Great. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. Great question. I could waffle on about that for ages, of course. Yeah. Yeah, I'll give it a few seconds, see if anybody else wants to before I dive right in, right? Because I tend to forget there's someone standing there for a minute and just continue waffling on for ages. But hey, Giggly, how you doing over there?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Awesome. I'm brilliant. Thanks. So yeah, what can I waffle on about? Yeah, something that I've been working on this week. I think I might have mentioned it last week, possibly a little bit, briefly before I had to jump out. I think because it was a shorter event last week. But I've been working on some prototypes in terms of user interface, right? And one of the things I've been working on is virtual reality smartphone, right? So I have a basic prototype. It's got a home screen. It's got custom wallpapers. It's got a status bar. It's not quite fully fledged notification area yet, but it's certainly a status bar. It has time and battery level in the corner. It has a series of icons to be able to pop open an app drawer, right? So you can tap on that and it slides up, and then you can slide it back down just like you would do on your smartphone. It has a camera app. It has an app that allows you to make video calls to your friends. which is something that's been really interesting and fun that we've been playing with. Yeah, it's honestly it's quite interesting. You'll be able to call people even if they're in a different space. You'll be able to have a video call with them, see what they're seeing or whatever they're showing you on their phone, and vice versa, which is honestly really cool. I think at some point there's not a huge barrier there from us being able to experiment with making calls from one app to another. So we have a few apps actually, other than Banter, that we've released on SideQuest, and we maybe could add some kind of capability there so that we could demonstrate what I think could actually be a really cool piece of technology, let's say, for the metaverse, right? And I hate that word. I fucking hate that word. Just gonna put that out there. But if we can get past that for a minute, I think a lot of these companies out there are constantly throwing this term around or renaming their company to the name of the term, or absolutely lacing it with all sorts of crypto-based understandings. And I don't think there's a lot of people actually focusing on trying to build technologies that can actually do some of the things that we could have, right? And I think something like a virtual smartphone that would let you call somebody on a different app and then see what they're seeing in that app and have that back and forth communication, have that cross communication system kind of built in and ready to go. I think that is representative of something like that, right? That kind of it's a tool that I think bridges the gap, and I think that's what we need if we're going to have a super connected future that all of us are kind of really interested to see, right? That's why we're here in VR. We want to see what cool things we can do, and I think that's definitely something that fits that bill. So yeah, I mean, it's not the first thing that we've had. Our own SDK itself houses a really strong component that I think, personally anyway, serves as a great foundation for the metaverse, and that is the browser to Unity bridge, right? That we've created for Banter that allows you to load your spaces from your websites, basically, right? And to leverage the open web and to be decentralized and to let the spaces be wherever they want to be and to let Banter behave like a web browser, much like it should, so that people can have freedom, as much freedom as they've had on the internet, right? That makes sense to me. That promotes an interoperable system, right? Banter is just a tool, it's just a browser for you to be able to have the freedom to go and visit whatever you want that's out there on the internet, right? And I think that honestly is quite different from the mentality that you seem to get from a lot of these big social media companies, or from other outfits in VR that have to have that have somehow bridged metaverse and crypto together, or even the ones outside of virtual reality that will tell you that metaverse has nothing to do with VR somehow, and it's all to do with them setting up some sort of a showcase sales platform for their NFTs that are worthless now or something, right? That's apparently what the metaverse is, right? Like I say, very charged word. Not very fond of it myself. But in a nutshell, what I like about the stuff that we work on here is that it does, it's not exclusive to us, and it does have a potential viable, value or use case outside of just the things that we're using it for, right? And I'm not putting it out there and saying, God, everybody's going to adopt it and it's going to become one of those things, right? That's really up to I guess, the mind share of people in this audience specifically to decide that sort of thing, right? That's not up to us to decide. But I think what we've got from a lot of the other outfits is nothing like that. It's a very closed system. There's nothing in these other platforms that offers any kind of interoperability, right? Which is kind of fundamental, I think, right? It's like saying you go onto your favorite browser, and all of a sudden, every website on the internet is from one company, and it's all just a closed experience inside of your browser and has nothing to do with the freedom for anybody to be able to put information out there Wow, I've been waffling for a while on this one. Usually somebody's put me out of my misery by this point and waddled on up there up the ladder to ask me a question, but that's cool. I can continue to waffle. I'm good at that. Oh, Barry's got me. Nice one, Barry. Saved by the bell. Hit me. Oh, you fell off. That's it.
Oh no.
AFK jail. Off
Oh
you go.
no.
Some things I'm getting better at, some things I'm worse. So what you just said is exactly my takeaway from the MetaConnect event. And I really didn't come into VR to be a part of Facebook. And yet this is what I had to do. I had to
Yes.
get a Quest. Now, I guess that freedom that you talk about, that's being eroded pretty rapidly within other platforms on the Quest. And
Yes.
so I'm really excited about what you're doing, and I really feel it was time for me to come out and say that, because this is where I see the future. It is not where I see big companies taking us. So there you go. Thank you.
Appreciate your thoughts, Barry. Yeah. I mean, yeah, for sure. I mean, um I think in a lot of instances, uh, these other outfits will claim, at least anyway, that they're building the metaverse or building the next future for a lot of us. But you're right, Barry. With Meta, it's clear, at least anyway, that they want to keep uh, all of the elements of their offering kind of tied into what you're doing. For a long time they pushed forward with the Facebook login integration, and obviously eventually they did backpedal, of course. But I mean, the truth is, if you're anywhere across the suite of Meta apps, whether it's Facebook or WhatsApp or Instagram or the Meta Quest Horizon OS platform, right? You're kind of in the same thing. And, whether you're creating a Meta account or a Facebook account or anything really, fundamentally doesn't matter. Meta doesn't treat Facebook as a different company from itself. So information is absolutely shared freely internally between these different outfits, right? Especially with Meta, and their terms very likely covers their ability to be able to do that. In fact, introducing the Meta account was kind of a perfect opportunity to kind of just be, well, here's our terms, and we're Meta, and we're going to do whatever we want with all your data anyway. So, but yeah, I mean, we I don't know. I think we have enough of these really closed ecosystems, and we need something like the open internet, the open web, as a kind of a foundational framework. I think, right? We need something that's going to become that kind of caliber of open system before anything like this is possible, or else we'll just have competing existing closed gardens that are just each trying to absorb as much mind share as possible, but never working together, never integrating together. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. We have a we have a diverse interest at SideQuest, I guess, right? Because typically game developers, especially in more mature markets, are very competitive, right? There's quite a lot of scrutiny that goes into the likes of competitor analysis when you're looking at what are the games that I'm competing with, that are launching, that are coming soon, that have very similar features, all that kind of stuff. But we don't have any of that here because we're in a position where we want to serve all developers of games, and we're investing in games, and we're building our own games. But it gives us a great, I think anyway, it gives us a great position to be able to say, okay, well, we're not going to be that competitive, and we're going to instead try and find ways to elevate others and try and provide technology solutions, things like that, that's that spread the love in terms of different things that we're trying to do, right? If we manage to pull something off and it's kind of cool and people like it and are starting to use it, then open it up. Let as many people get their hands on it as possible. That's probably the best chance it has of surviving. Anyway, Divine, go ahead. I'm waffling.
You're fine. I was just wondering about that button for the camera. Do you know when that might be coming? Had some people the other day was saying that it needed to be done, and I'm like, yeah, I asked about that, but it's okay. But I know that you said it was coming out whenever you launch the new menu. Isn't
Yes.
that when you said? Yeah, the new menu. Okay.
Well,
Um,
yeah, I mean, I think we have a couple of different iterations on the camera internally. There's a camera as part of this new phone thing that I'm working on, but it's not quite mature enough yet. And I think Aline is also working on a tablet form factor of a selfie cam as well. So there's potentially something we can do there. I don't know specifically if this is going to be available as soon as the new menu launches.
right.
Yeah, there's quite a few things
Um,
kind of going on at once here, so it's just trying to
I think
find
this.
the right priority.
I don't think this next question I have has to do with you per se, but I was wondering if you know like how I don't know. Okay, basically, I was wondering the other day when I was in Unity, if there was anyone that knew of a way where you could actually have someone join you in your Unity project and work with you together in your Unity project instead of like tossing it back and forth or something like that. Do they actually have that for Unity where you can like join together and like add someone to your project with you? Do you know by any chance if they have that
That
available? I'm gonna fall down. Oh no.
that's interesting. I'm not familiar. Oh, go ahead, Aline.
They had it at some point, but that's already years ago. I think it was called Unity Reflect, but
Right.
I think it never reached a real release date. It was a
Oh,
preview package, as most stuff Unity does in the package manager. And let's see,
you
is
need
this
to
still a
come back out
thing?
with it. Try again. Because it seems like it would be a lot fun to have multiple people working on a project together instead of
Yes.
tossing the file back and forth. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, you have to check it out. So there is still the Unity Reflect viewer on the
Okay.
GitHub repository from Unity. It's now, last update is 2 years ago.
Okay.
So maybe this is still working, but since this needs some networking, I wouldn't be very optimistic that this
Right.
is
Okay.
actually still working.
Right. All
Yeah.
right.
I
Thank
think
you.
I know of something.
Oh, you do?
Yeah,
Oh,
Unity Collaborate is something I've actually used with Aziz here when we were working on something together. We have a group, a team. It's called a Unity team, and everybody works on a Unity project in a cloud-hosted environment. So look up Unity Collaborate. I think that's what you're looking for.
Unity Collaborate. Awesome.
Uh-huh.
Thank you.
So it's
Thank
you
you,
just,
everyone.
I make
yes.
changes, it saves it there, and then he downloads the
Yeah.
update and blah blah blah. Yep.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, there's a few options for that
Sure.
actually. You've got Unity Collaborate, right? There's also another thing that Unity acquired called Plastic SCM. It's source control management. That's effectively what all of this is. You can also use GitHub for this if anybody's familiar with that, or GitLab, or any Git cloud-based implementation works great. And they've pretty much got support for Unity out of the box too. What you want to add is an ignore file on Git. It's called a git ignore, and it makes sure it doesn't upload any files that don't need to be uploaded, right? Files that get generated automatically and just kind of clog things up. But once you put that in place, Git becomes a kind of perfect tool for this. We use it internally to manage Banter itself, the entire project. And even when things are getting really volatile, like they are right now, right? Unity is very volatile at the base level. And it's the reason why something like what Aline is referring to may or may not work. Your mileage may vary, right? That's kind of always a given when it comes to Unity. But with GitHub, even with things transitioning quite a lot between Unity versions, we're running several branches at once, integrating multiple projects into one, stripping stuff out, moving folders around en masse, doing lots of refactoring, all that kind of stuff, plus 4 to 5 people all interacting with the project literally simultaneously. GitHub basically has done everything we could have needed to be able to make that collaboration a bit easier, right? The idea being the majority of your project is already there and up and stored, and everybody has most of it downloaded on their computers too. And anytime you make a change, you just upload that incremental change, just the difference part that's actually changed. And then when people pull down the parts they want, it's usually very quick, right? So that can be very quick. If you're making a quick change on your end, you upload it, takes a second. They download it, takes a second. So you can usually then go back and forth. There's lots of tools in there, lots of things you can use for concurrency in Git as well. You can use feature branches or Git flow, for instance. Those are some interesting things worth looking into if you're collaborating with a larger team. And that allows you to have, a bit of a mechanism. Most of it is just around procedure and policy and stuff like that, but you have a mechanism to be able to work together, and everybody can kind of understand that as a baseline. But yeah, definitely something. If anybody wants more info, feel free to ask in the Space Makers channel on the Discord. I'll be happy to offer any input I have. Right, we have a number of people internally. We all use Git. Yeah, go ahead, Aline.
Maybe one more hint. So I would absolutely recommend just using GitHub. It's free and it works pretty good, especially with the GitHub desktop application. It's an absolutely no-brainer. And also, when you work with more people, try to learn doing everything in a prefab. This will help you a lot, and you don't have to save and overwrite scenes, so everyone can work on their part, and then it will be merged from one person, and people only have to submit their prefabs, and it will be updated in your main scene, and everyone will see the changes from everyone else. That's just a little tip from me.
Great advice. Really great advice. And for anybody who's familiar with the topic in general, Unity actually provide a binary merge tool built into the Unity command line. We've been using it internally. It has a better understanding of the YAML format that Unity uses for Unity scene files and for prefab files and for asset files, for basically all of the files that Unity uses to reference and pull everything together. So their merge tool, I can't remember what it's called, Unity diff or something like that, but it's a little exe file that comes with the Unity editor, and you can use that. And it just, if anybody's ever done merge conflicts or dealt with merge conflicts in Git, that's when the collaboration breaks down and two people have edited the same thing, and it tries to bring it all together, and then it just fills up your files with all the changes, both people's changes, plus a bunch of lines that will probably break the file. So those are fun to deal with. But yeah, like I say, there's a built-in exe which takes a lot of the pain out of that and makes merging easier. So that's definitely something worth looking into if anybody's wanting to collaborate. Sorry, Ron, I'm waffling. Go ahead.
Okay. I actually had a question. I don't know if it's something that exists already, if it's something that you're maybe planning to add for like space makers, but the ability to like restrict certain features or certain abilities of users when they're in an event. For example, I was in an event last week where some people were kind of trolling by throwing portals and kicking people out by throwing a portal at them. Is there a way to disable that or like show a log of who actually did those or threw those portals?
There is a way to disable it. In fact, there is a way to enable and disable various abilities, because I agree with you. I think in some cases it's important for a space to be able to decide what users can do in that space, right? For a number of reasons. And yeah, right now you can turn off teleporting, you can turn on or off Spider-Man mode, you can turn on or off portals, you can turn on or off the ability for guests to be able to join the spaces. That can be done using our original old SDK v1 as well as our new SDK v2. Both of them allow you to do all of those things. In future, we'll probably have more abilities, and the space will have more control over whether or not people can use those abilities, right? Things like being able to fly, being able to change the scale of your avatar. These are things that we're either working on already internally or we've been talking about, right? And I think ultimately, if you're going to create a gamified experience, especially, then you need to be able to kind of keep things sane so that people can't make themselves massive or fly around or turn off gravity or do whatever they want to do, right? So the plan in the future is to have a kind of a comprehensive list of things that you as the space creator can turn on or off for the users in your space. Maybe even turn them on or off dynamically, right? Depending on what part of the space they might be in. And
Right.
if they do have those abilities, the plan is to have then a quick menu that might let them adjust those abilities or toggle those abilities, turning them on and off for themselves, right? But ultimately, the space will have an override to force them off and disable them entirely.
Or to see who actually threw a portal, for example, that kicked somebody, or if the portal was enabled, or
Yeah, I mean that's something that potentially we could do. It sounds like it's something along the lines of sort of an audit trail, right, of what's going
yeah,
on
kind of,
within your
yeah,
space. Yeah, I mean I think we want to be able to provide a kind of a suite of analytics eventually, right, so that you can see uh, yeah, so you can kind of see what's going on, see who's visiting your space. Maybe there's something in there that you might also be able to see that kind of information too. Something else that we're hoping to implement and fix in general in portals is that we want to make them less likely to be able to portal you away if they're thrown on top of you, right? So that's something I think, can just improve overall. And maybe in some instances, I'm not 100% sure. Faye just pinged me as we were talking, but maybe a confirmation asking if you'd actually like to go into the portal before you go into it, right? Especially if it's somebody else's portal or if it's a portal from a person that's not on your friends list or something along those lines that might help give you that opt out when it matters, right? But also, I love just jumping into a portal. I find that quite fun. I'd hate to
oh
disrupt
yeah, for
that
sure, yeah,
immersive experience in
yeah,
all cases. But if it's a friend, maybe they're gonna troll you and you won't be as annoyed about it or something. I don't know. Do you know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I
Thank you.
think ultimately on all fronts, we want to try and improve that for sure.
Great, thanks.
No problem. Thank you. Okay, so let's see. What else can I waffle on about? Let's see, Aline, have you got any suggestions? You got anything cool that we're working on at the minute you want to talk about?
Nope.
Nice. You don't even throw me a bone. Oh, Shoseki's got a question. Is this from you or is this from YouTube? Yes. Yep. Yes. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I think in general you can think of them as grab points. And when it comes to the implementation, you'll likely, either create an empty object that's inside your object at a certain position offset, or maybe there's a component that has some sort of a gizmo that allows you to kind of position where the point is, let's say, and then you'll have different grab types or grab modes. So there's a spherical grab that you can enable. So if the object is generally round, it will just put the hands around it at any scale. It'll automatically adjust to the radius, that kind of thing. Or there's a cylindrical grab. So if you're grabbing a pole or a bar or a baseball bat or a golf club or anything like that, that it'll wrap your hands around that quite nicely. Or a pole, if you're climbing a pole, anything like that. Then there's just a free grab, which is kind of like what we've got at the minute, but it should be a little bit better in that it won't allow your hands to actually clip into the object as much, and it should just feel a lot more natural. But then you've got the actual grab points that give you an actual hand pose. So putting your hand into that, that gun position and making sure that anytime you grab it, it will land at the same position. But of course, that will, be something that as space makers, you'll have the ability to control that on a per object basis. So you can put one or more grab points on an object so that you could have one or two-handed automatic grab pose and positioning for whatever it is that you're doing, right? This is something I'm pretty excited about, especially for the sample game that we're building, which is going to be a paintball game. I'm excited to be able to have that, right? That's one of the things I find most frustrating about building and testing that is every time I have to pick the gun up, I have to rotate it like 3 times in my hand to get it to the right pose that I want it in. So the automated hand posing and grab point and posing of the object, I guess, as well, is going to make that so much better. And it's going to be really handy for anything you guys want to create, that you can create a suite of physical objects in the space and have people's hands react differently to them when they're picking them up. So yeah, definitely. Yeah, no problem at all. I think it's worth saying as well, there's sort of 2 dimensions or 2 separate components, I guess, to that too, right? So you've got all that grab pose stuff, but most of that is going to be, just how you dynamically interact with objects. I think that there is a wider attachment system that may not depend on you actually picking the object up, right? I think we're familiar with some use cases out there, at least, where you attach objects to the hands, to the head, to the rest of the body. I think the new attachment system that we're going to go for is likely going to allow you to attach things to any bone, right, in the body, from head to toe. So that should give much more flexibility than what we've got right now, which is just being able to attach to the head and to the hands and to the torso and maybe to the cockpit as well. So yeah, I think the challenge there is just about optimizing that attachment system and making sure, it looks smooth and it looks the same for everybody as much as we possibly can, right? Just having that inherently networked, synced, and it just looks well and works well. And how we achieve that, that local synchronization so that when you look at your own hand, it looks good, or that remote synchronization so that when everybody else sees it, your hand and the object, they move together, even if you're moving at speed. Those are the kind of things that we want to try and make sure is the case. But yeah, nice one. Thank you for that, Choseki. Mr. E, what can I do for?
Yeah, do you want to touch on what we were discussing in the earlier today with the support thing, or not yet?
Probably not. I wasn't actually supposed to mention that in the Discord, so it's probably best to not talk about it just yet in public. So I think I'll give Faye and Yunji, who've been working on that, their place to announce and bring that out, right? Thankfully, the support ticket usually doesn't get everybody's attention, I think. Anyway, maybe it does. Maybe everybody's already seen it. No, it's not that big of a deal. Yeah. I'll wait for those guys to maybe do some more revisions on it and to present it to the rest of the community themselves. It is very nearly finished, and it's one part of a larger picture, really, that we're trying to paint, which is really focused around education, right? I've had probably some discussions with some of you in different contexts as well about this, right? But we've been hard at work behind the scenes trying to create support materials that answer a lot of the questions, whether you're fuck, I'm just going into it now, aren't I? Whether you're new to this kind of stuff, or you've been here for a while, or you're involved in hosting events, or you want to learn about how to make spaces, there's a crossover there. There's a lot of documentation in different places as well, but we want to kind of centralize everything so at least you can come to a place and search and find something. But I won't say any more than that. I'll let those guys present that to you when it's ready, which it should be very soon. So stay tuned. Yeah. Kitty, you making your way towards the podium?
I sure am. Oh, I'm not going to stay on here. Oh, maybe? Okay. Anyway, this is on behalf of Dead Zed. He had to drop out, but he wanted to ask, with his cookie clicker world, one of the things people want is the ability for when they leave, they can come back and there's a way that their progress saves. Is that going to be something that could be potentially possible or is already possible?
I mean, yeah, absolutely. That's actually been possible for quite a while. There's a number of ways to do that. Quite a number of ways. Yeah, I mean, you're dealing with a browser, right? So because there's a browser at the core of everything in Banter, it means that the browser has ways to store information. You can store information in cookies or in local storage, which has an ample amount of info, or places for you to store that info. Honestly, there's a broad spectrum of possibilities here, but of course you can build out your own solution, your own database and back end, and put information in there that's relative to your game, store people's high scores. We've seen the Winter Sport Resort has a leaderboard. I mean, that's kind of what we're talking about here, right? That's the progress of everybody, public.
Yes,
and shared.
leaderboard is something that people wanted to.
Yeah. Well, I think maybe Aline would like to jump in there, but I think Aline was working on a prototype leaderboard that works in visual scripting, right? So that might be something that people might find a bit more easy to work with. Is that right, Aline?
Yeah, no, I think what she's referring to is saved variables, that you have a progress that's getting saved on your local device, that you can come back, because everything you do in the browser will still get resetted at some point. And yeah, I'm facing actually the same problem at the moment, so I will make sure that we get some options to save some values.
Awesome.
But currently it's making it with the browser with space state properties is the best option, as long as someone stays in the space. Then all the data will be preserved.
I should point out, space state properties are pretty much persistent and permanent, right? Whether the person's in the space or not, they leave, they come back, it will store it against the space. It is worth noting that depending on what it is and what you're doing, there is absolutely the capability to store all of this data. And as I mentioned before, yeah, I mean, it is a browser, but there's no easy way to clear out the temp data in the browser. So using something like local storage is actually very similar to space state properties in that you pass in a key, which is a string, a name, and then a string, which is a value, right? Exactly the same as space state properties work. But it's just local, stored in your temp files in the browser that's built into Banter. And those should be permanent and persistent, right? Unless you work your way through the local low folder and delete the Banter link folder from there. Otherwise, that data will remain and you'll always be able to read that locally for the user, right? Nope. Won't clear your browser cache.
Nice.
It won't clear your browser cache. The clear cache will only clear any avatars that have been cached, or will clear any asset bundles that have been cached, but won't clear the browser cache.
Thank you.
So yeah,
Thank
so
you
that information absolutely is persistent, right? And I think what Aline is talking about is more kind of like some user properties, right? Or user variables or something like that that lets you store things against the user. Maybe that's something that we might introduce in future. We have some form of that coming together with the new SDK, although it's not persistent, right? So I don't think it would quite work for this use case, but it's a property that would be there for the user while they're in a space. That is something that we do have coming separately from that. Maybe that's what Aline was thinking about. But honestly, it depends. If you know what you're doing, having access to the web and being able to, you can throw up a Firebase database, you can throw up a SQLite database, a MySQL database. If these are terms that ring bells with any of you, that is absolutely, completely and utterly persistent storage that you can use for pretty much any purpose that you want, right? And that's always been possible as well. This is obviously one of, I think, the beauties of the way that we do things around here is leveraging that web stack means that you can create web applications that can, remember people or store their progress or, cloud save. That kind of thing on the space level is really possible in so many different ways. But yeah, I mean, us introducing kind of user variables is also something that would be good in future, right? So that you don't have to have your own back-end service to be able to do something like that. But I would definitely recommend local storage is probably one of the most useful and valuable things that already exists. And maybe we could do some sort of an injection wrapper, right? That would leverage local storage so that you could use that from visual scripting because that's kind of perfect. It's a nice little sandboxed environment where you can store data against that browser, right? Which is going to be that current user in pretty much all, mostly all cases, unless you've got a couple people sharing computers and logging in and out of their Banter accounts. In that case, maybe it's not so much so. But you can also get access to the user's ID. So you could store that data in local storage with some kind of a user reference, which would mean that you could differentiate in future and pull that out. Anyway, I'm getting very, very technical on the subject, but yeah, I mean, obviously there's loads of ways to store data on the open web. And if you know what you're doing, there's really a lot of ways that you can leverage that. And we do that, right? We do that quite a lot. I use it for the AI gallery space. It has a little SQLite database that stores a record for each and every image that gets generated. It doesn't actually store the image. It stores a link to Discord's CDN because that's where I host the images. Thank you, Discord, for all that bandwidth. Love it.
Yeah.
But there's a database, little
You're
SQLite
welcome.
database that keeps no problem, thank you. That keeps a record of all of those links, right? So that it can serve it up from the cache if need be, instead of generating it again, or let us see it later if we want from the same reference gallery image, But yeah, even the video player. Yeah, I guess it doesn't really have any persistent storage, right? And that's another way to do this. You can, of course, just have a little web application that stores information in memory, right? Inside of an array or some other data structure within the code language, you can have that information there. That's actually how we do it for the Winter Sport Resort, for the leaderboards in there. We just store it as a list in memory. The difficulty then, of course, is that Glitch will restart the apps every now and again when they go idle. So once they do that, it just wipes out any scores that are stored in memory until somebody sets a new score, right? Which is I think was fine for the purposes of the Winter Sport Resort. And maybe that could work as well for the cookie clicker, if I'm honest, but I'm not sure exactly how that's implemented. But anyway, Ron, go ahead, hit me up. I'm waffling.
Yeah, it's just kind of a quick follow up because I think I've heard you say before, because all of the stuff you're talking about sounds like you require JavaScript. But I thought you mentioned before that the JavaScript stuff is more legacy. So can you talk a little bit about how you do that without JavaScript, or is there parts of JavaScript that are still going to remain in the platform, or how would that work?
Sure, yeah. Sorry, I maybe yeah, maybe I said it wrong, but JavaScript isn't legacy by any means. No, I think we have kind of a dual front in terms of scripting language, which we want to have feature parity between the two. JavaScript right up there front and center alongside Unity visual scripting. So I actually think some of the best experiences in future will leverage both of those things combined, right? Because with JavaScript, you've got you can actually write custom logic. You know, if there's something that doesn't exist within visual scripting, you can't really, you just can't do it, or you might have to come up with a crazy way to try and pull it off. But in JavaScript, you can still write elegant logic with without any kind of limits or restrictions. And you can also leverage, the open web and the browser stack. So those are some really powerful elements about JavaScript. But on the other side, you've got visual scripting, right? Visual scripting has got a lot of inherent Unity capability built into it, capability that we haven't exposed yet to JavaScript, right? So you can do crazy things in visual scripting right now that you can't really do easily from JavaScript. And an example of that would, for instance, be making dynamic changes like say directly affecting the shape of geometry, right? Dynamically changing the shape of geometry. You can do that from visual scripting because you've got direct access to the vertices. And while something like that is generally quite expensive, it's a lot more efficient to do that from visual scripting with direct access to the domain and to the context. But in JavaScript, we would have to transfer that back and forth through the communication pipeline we've created, which would make that less efficient. So yeah, I mean, like I say, I think that there's a lot of power that's unique and exclusive to kind of both sides of those two scripting languages, and the real benefit is going to be on bringing those together and leveraging those together, right? So yeah, I think JavaScript is the extreme open situation and has everything that you could possibly need to write logic. But visual scripting is very much tuned into Unity specifically, right? And either or of them, could be used separately or together. Yeah, whatever you kind of prefer. But yeah, JavaScript is a big important part of the core of the platform. It won't be going anywhere anytime soon.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So yeah, I mean that's us actually over the hour, folks. So yeah, I think that's us for tonight. But thank you all for attending. Please stay tuned for tomorrow if you're coming to the AMA. Things will be changing slightly. As I mentioned at the start of this event, we're going to take a more relaxed approach and maybe have a fireside chat, just an open conversation that's a bit more sociable than me just standing up in front and just talking at you all for an hour. So we'll see how that goes. We'll see if it works out, and if it does, great. If it doesn't, we can adjust, or we can go back if need be. But some of you may have noticed already with the Crystal Lake world, there's a new event-based version of that, which we plan to run events in so that there's more of a chill hangout spot, let's say, in the Crystal Lake itself. I've mentioned before we have a technical solution that's coming down the line for this as well. So everything you're looking at for now is just temporary, and it should hopefully get a lot better in the future. But yeah, thanks so much.
Thank you, Shane.
I'll see you again this time next week. And yeah, stay tuned. I think we've got a quest giveaway that's ending tomorrow as well. So stay tuned for that. And yeah, thank you all so much. I'll see you all very soon.